I never thought my life would change while cleaning up after strangers. But one burnt pancake and a desperate dream turned my life around. Here's how I went from scraping tips to standing on the world's most prestigious culinary stages. Hi everyone, and welcome to this incredible story of transformation. If you've ever felt stuck in life, let this be the inspiration you need to take that leap of faith. But before we dive in, make sure to like this video, leave a comment about your dreams, and subscribe to our channel for more life-changing stories. I was 24 years old, waiting tables in a small-town diner. My days started at dawn, serving coffee to regulars who barely looked up from their newspapers. The uniform, a fraying apron and squeaky non-slip shoes, felt like a daily reminder of how far I was from my dreams. Financially, I was barely scraping by. My paycheck disappeared as soon as it hit my account. Rent, groceries, and the occasional repair for my beat-up car left nothing for myself. Emotionally, I was exhausted. Every plate I carried to a customer felt like another nail in the coffin of my forgotten ambitions. Growing up, I loved to cook. I'd spend hours in my grandmother's kitchen, experimenting with her old recipe cards. But after high school, life happened. Dreams of culinary school were replaced by the harsh reality of bills and responsibilities. At work, I'd watch the chefs in the kitchen. They moved with precision, creating dishes I could only dream of mastering. I'd offer to help them when I could, but they rarely took me seriously. "Stick to serving tables," they'd say with a smirk. My family wasn't much help either. My mother, a practical woman, often said, "You can't make a living off dreams." And I believed her, until everything changed. It was an ordinary Thursday morning, the kind that blurred into the rest of my monotonous days. The diner was unusually quiet, only a handful of regulars nursing their coffees and flipping through newspapers. I was exhausted as usual, having worked a double shift the day before. My arms ached, my shoes pinched my feet, and my mind was numb from the routine. But little did I know, that day was about to change my life forever. One of the cooks called in sick, leaving the kitchen understaffed and the manager in a frenzy. Orders were piling up, and customers were growing impatient. "Can anyone step in and help in the kitchen?" the manager barked, desperation in his voice. I hesitated, looking around at my coworkers. No one moved. I felt an odd tug inside me, a mixture of fear and an old buried dream resurfacing. Slowly, I raised my hand. "I can try," I said, my voice barely audible. The manager's skeptical look wasn't exactly reassuring. "All right," he sighed. "Just don't burn the place down." As I stepped into the small, chaotic kitchen, my heart pounded. I'd spent years watching the chefs work from afar, but now it was my turn. I tied on an apron, washed my hands, and stared at the order slips lined up on the counter. Pancakes, omelets, burgers. My hands trembled as I picked up a spatula. The first pancake I made stuck to the griddle, tearing as I tried to flip it. The second one was undercooked, its center still gooey. By the time I attempted the third, smoke was billowing from the griddle. The pancake was burnt, its edges charred to a crisp. The smell of failure filled the kitchen, and I braced myself for the inevitable scolding. But instead, the manager walked over, tasted a fresh batch of food I had just plated, and paused. I held my breath, waiting for the criticism. Instead, he said something that I'll never forget. "You've got potential," he murmured, almost as if surprised by his own words. Those 3 words lit a spark in me. Potential. I'd never heard anyone describe me that way. For years, I'd been stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, convinced that my dreams were just childish fantasies. But in that moment, something shifted. I went home that night and pulled out my grandmother's old recipe box, which had been gathering dust in the back of a cabinet. As a child, I'd spent countless afternoons in her kitchen, watching her knead dough and simmer sauces. She'd always told me that food wasn't just about feeding people, it was about creating memories, telling stories, and bringing joy. That night, I stayed up until dawn experimenting. I burned my fair share of dishes, but I also rediscovered my love for cooking. I made sauces that reminded me of childhood holidays and desserts that brought tears to my eyes. The next morning, despite my exhaustion, I felt alive for the first time in years. At work, I started volunteering to help in the kitchen whenever I could. I'd ask the chefs endless questions, scribbling down notes on napkins and practicing at home late into the night. I watched online tutorials, read cookbooks borrowed from the library, and practiced techniques with whatever ingredients I could afford. One day, a regular customer noticed me working in the kitchen and asked the manager, "Who's cooking today?" "This omelet is perfect." That small compliment fueled me further. I wasn't just a waitress anymore. I was someone capable of creating something extraordinary. It wasn't a smooth journey. There were nights when I questioned whether I was wasting my time, when the exhaustion and ridicule from others made me want to give up. But every burnt pancake, every failed recipe was a lesson. And with each mistake, I grew more determined to succeed. This single moment, a burnt pancake in a crowded diner kitchen, was the catalyst for everything that came after. It was the day I stopped waiting for opportunities to come to me and decided to create them myself. Pursuing my culinary dream wasn't easy. I couldn't afford culinary school, so I turned to the internet, devouring every free tutorial and recipe I could find. By day, I was a waitress. By night, I was a self-taught chef, practicing in my tiny kitchen with borrowed utensils and discounted ingredients. The people around me didn't understand. My coworkers laughed when I talked about becoming a chef. My friends called it a phase. Even my mother's support was lukewarm at best. "Why not just focus on getting a better paying job?" she'd ask. But I didn't let the doubts stop me. Instead, I used every rejection and snide comment as fuel to push harder. One day, a customer at the diner, a food critic, as it turned out, ordered a sandwich I'd made during my kitchen shift. He called me over and asked, "Did you make this?" When I nodded, he smiled. "You have talent. Have you ever considered working in a real kitchen?" He connected me with a local bistro that was hiring prep cooks. It was a small role, but it was my foot in the door. The first night, I made mistakes. I cut vegetables too thick, spilled sauce on the counter, and overcooked a steak. But I stayed late to clean up and practice, earning the respect of the head chef. Months turned into years, and I worked my way up from prep cook to sous chef. I entered local cooking competitions and surprised everyone, especially myself, by winning a few. One competition changed everything. A Michelin-starred chef, a judge that day, took notice of my work. "You've got something special," he said, handing me his business card. A month later, I was on a train to New York City to work in his kitchen. The next few years were grueling. The hours were long, and the pressure was immense. But I thrived, soaking up every bit of knowledge like a sponge. Fast forward to today, and I'm no longer just the girl who burned a pancake. I'm the owner of 3 Michelin-starred restaurants, each inspired by my grandmother's recipes. I've traveled the world, cooking for presidents, celebrities, and food enthusiasts alike. But what I'm most proud of is the impact I've had on others. I mentor young chefs, especially women, who dream of breaking into the culinary world, but don't know where to start. If my story proves anything, it's that no matter where you start, your dreams are valid. So, if you're feeling stuck or unsure, take that first step. You never know where it might lead. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and success. See you in the next video.